Suffering is a sense of not okayness, non-allowance, non-acceptance, sense of involvement, interference with what is, whether that includes the circumstance. So what I think, feel, speak, do, or what the other thinks, perceives, says, doesn't say, does or doesn't do, or the events in life turning out one way or the other way. So now this is the concept. What does it really translate into when this concept is really accepted and is applied upon our daily experience? Where do I find myself not okay with whatever is, including my not okayness, including my sense of involvement, including my imperfections or the other's imperfection or life's imperfection? Where do I find myself insisting that life needs to feel one way or the other way? And that insistence in itself is suffering, not how life is. The experiential assimilation of this concept is what is called as detachment or renunciation, even surrender. These words are created as labels for the absence of the not okayness, the non-insistence, or sorry, the absence of the insistence, absence of involvement, absence of non-acceptance. It is not a positive intention or positive feeling that can be felt as in like, oh, this is what surrender is, or this is what detachment is. It can only be accurately pointed to as the absence of their opposite, the absence of attachment, the absence of this deep-rooted insistence on this is how I should be, this is how I should feel all the time, or this is how I should be all the time, or this is how the other should be with me all the time, or this is how life should be, this is how God should be, assuming that God is a separate entity that we project our desires on, that God better fulfill, because that's God's job description as the all-giving. our sense of God or concept of God comes with a job description, how God should be and how God shouldn't be. What is God? If we really drop all the baggage that this three-letter word holds, where we are so identified with what this word means and my God and their God, and if there is a God, does God exist? Why is God doing this to me? Why is God doing this to the world? What is this God? And we can exchange this word God with life, with universe, with cosmic flow, energy, whatever holds that meaning for us. What is that? If this question really arises within, without an intention to relieve the question by finding an answer as soon as possible, if the question can really arise without an insistence on finding an answer, and if the question can hang around and really do its job of dissolving all the other questions. Why me? Why this? Why not this? And if the question that what is God? What is here? Can be allowed in its own sincerity. It doesn't come with an answer. This is the question. Who am I? What is God? What is here? What is it that is here? This question comes with no answer. This question comes as the very dissolving agent of the need to know, the need to figure stuff out. And as the dissolving agent, it itself gets dissolved. And then what remains is what we could call God. What remains is actually really nameless. Any name would be limited. And what remains is limitless. And in the recognition of that limitlessness that is, suffering is allowed as equally as peace of mind. In that limitlessness, there is no insistence on peace remaining or suffering to end. It is impartial, equally indifferent, equally detached, equanimous towards everything that appears in the spectrum of duality, which seems to be pleasure or pain, or which seems to feel like an uplifting experience or a restricting, tightening experience. Both are allowed. To manifest in their full potential. That which remains is fully open and available to the sense of suffering and the sense of peace. Is fully available to my strengths and weaknesses, to my seeking, to me, whatever this me entails in that given moment, whatever the genes and up-to-date conditioning are for this me in a particular given moment. As this that remains when everything is dissolved, as this is tasted more and more experientially, as a remembrance, as a recognition, as an unveiling, the fragrance of this is bound to penetrate me, me the person, me the seeker, me the product of genes and up-to-date conditioning. The conditioning is bound to be updated sooner or later, gradually or momentarily. And what that would look like, what that may look like, is an okayness with suffering. In my daily living, I'm standing in a line to wait to get to a counter to buy a ticket, and somebody just runs past and crosses me. So excuse me, and they just cross me and stand in front of me. And then I look at them and it's like, there's a line. They'll be like, yeah, but I'm getting very late, please. And they say whatever they say. Or maybe they just laugh at me saying, oh, what a stupid woman. Couldn't even hold her place in line. See, I outpassed her. Whatever the input from there, would be. And there might be a snapping that may happen, or there might be a letting go that may happen, or there might be a calling out on the, let's say a security guard is there, and there might be a calling out to, oh, excuse me, I was standing here and they took my spot. Any of the consequences as a reaction to whatever happened can happen in that moment. What may happen as a proof that the recognition of the limitlessness of life, which translates as the flow of life being impersonal, including how I am in a given moment, which is the product of my genes and up-to-date conditioning. And so is the other who crossed in front of me, is a product of their genes and up-to-date conditioning. Who knows what situation they were in and they had to do that. And even if they just did it out of the sense of wanting to bully someone or making fun of someone, that's just how they are designed to be. And initially, it may appear conceptually where a snapping may happen, and then mind might be like, look at them, what kind of people are there these days? And all that thinking may go on. Why am I not, or it might be guilt, why am I not strong enough that I can take a stand for myself? And why did I shut up? And I should have said something. That whole spiral can start. So what happens initially is that there is and as seekers, what happens is that when blaming and shaming is going on, there is a shame or a guilt on top of that blaming. It's like, what, look, what is the point of me going to so many satsangs and seeking for 10 years and I'm still triggered by this little situation? And that is just more shame on top of the blame. That is the not okayness with what is. And in this case, what is blame. And there is an insistence on blame not being there, as if I am doing the blame and I'm not good enough and I need to stop blaming for me to be good enough. So what can happen is that blame can be allowed. It's like, oh, look at that. I'm blaming. Look at that. I'm shaming myself. Look at that. I'm in the spiral again. Not that it makes it any pleasant. It's definitely uncomfortable, quite uncomfortable. And yet there is a non-insistence on it being any other way. And that is the very proof that the limitlessness of that which is beyond suffering and peace is penetrating me as the experiencer of the experience. So whether the experience involves peace of mind, which is the absence of suffering, or whether there is suffering, which is an insistence on life being different, me being different, circumstance being different, because otherwise I'm not good enough or life is not good enough for me. There can be an equanimity whether there's peace or whether there's suffering. Suffering can be endured and not managed or even an investigation or trying to embrace the suffering or sitting with the suffering, if it's coming from an intention of wanting to end it, which can be very, very subtle, is already the involvement in suffering. It's already believing the reality of suffering, the reality of the belief that my happiness to be found in this arising, falling away. Not realizing that it's actually in the absence of my insistence of what is here as an arising that that is where suffering lies. And this pointing, this remembering can happen instantaneously in a situation, many times during the day. It was like, oh, look at that. There I was blaming again. Look at that. I was blaming myself there. And we might be stuck in a spiral of horizontal thinking of what happened and how could it have been different? What should I have said or not say? What should the other have done or not done? And all of that thinking can go on for hours and hours. And then suddenly it's like, look at that. There's attachment to outcome. There's this belief that the circumstance could have been different, should have been different for me to be okay. The recognition of or the confirmation of the concept that life is predestined. Life is exactly the one way that it has been, that it is in this moment. And from that logical reasoning, it ever will be one way. Whatever will happen, whatever will unfold is how it unfolds. There's no other way for it to be. And in that recognition or confirmation, the insistence for life to be different just makes no sense. What a waste of energy to insist on something which is not even available. This very recognition from a sense of doership, from a sense of needing control over life is the ultimate restriction. It's like, what do you mean? It is only one way. Of course, I can change my destiny. Of course, I can make a different choice. And from the place of the absence of that control freakiness that is so intricately designed as this human mechanism, in the absence of that insistence, this very recognition is the freedom. It's like, of course, it is one way. What other way would there be? That question in itself is invalid. And even me asking this question, that what other way could it be, should it be, is also exactly the way it is supposed to be. It is this way in this moment. Here we are, back to the place, coming to terms with the fact that the flow of life is impersonal, is exactly the way it is, including the very interpretation of what happens, which is based on our genes and up-to-date conditioning. And that also is exactly the way it is in this moment. So knowing this, accepting this, if accepting this happens, then what do I do? What do I do with this knowledge, or what do I do with life now that I know that nothing's in my control? Nothing has ever been in my control. What good does it do to me? And that's a very, very valid question. And Ramesh used to address this question many times in many talks. And he would beautifully, with a smile, answer the questions like, well, you keep on living life exactly as you have been living until now. Nothing changes except the presence of guilt and shame, blame and hatred, pride and arrogance, worry and anxiety, expectation and attachment to outcome. So life goes on exactly as it is. I keep on doing whatever my genes and conditioning make me do. I make choices, I do deeds, consequences happen. And if the consequence is pleasurable to the society, I am cherished. And if the consequence for the society, then I'm punished. Life goes on that way. In time, that life should have been different, or I should have been different, or others should have been different. It's just absent. When there is no insistence on an exchange, interpersonal exchange or business transaction, or any interaction with me and the other, whatever that other may be, could be another person, an animal, an object, a plant, whatever that other may be. Whenever there is an absence of insistence on that encounter to go a certain way, when there is an openness and almost a not knowing that how should it go, it's who knows, it'll go the way it'll go. When that attitude somehow is there, where there's no rehearsing going on, an encounter can happen which is of the highest order. And highest order doesn't make it like, not to make it desirable that now I want only encounters of highest order. The highest order here means that it is without adulteration, without manipulation, without attachment, without subtly, energetically demanding something from the other or myself. It is just free to flow as it flows. It could be good or it could not be good, but there is this freedom to, let's see what happens. Let's see what I do. Let's see what the other does to what I do. And let's see what I do to what the other does. And it can be a free flow of dance that can go on um, without that ickiness of why is it that way or why is it not that way? Because that way, my way, just doesn't make sense anymore. It doesn't need to hold any ground because life is exactly the way it is. And in each moment, not knowing what life is going to be in the next moment, there can be this open explorer quality. Well, let's see what happens. And that doesn't mean that we stop planning for life if planning needs to happen. But even though we might be going to work every day, we might be coming back to the same house, same family every day, we still don't know what's going to happen in the next moment. We don't know if the doorbell's going to ring. We don't know if a phone is going to ring. We don't know if one of the friends that I haven't even thought about in 10 years is going to text me, or my most loving, cherished relationship, we're going to have a fight. Who knows? We have no idea what's going to happen in the next moment. And surrender is the non-insistence in how it should be in the next moment. It can be how it will be. I don't know how it will be, but once it is, it's okay. And from that okayness, actions can still happen to solve a situation if it's problematic, or to evolve with the situation if it is super open and super pleasurable and super intimate, or however, very pleasant. So both the movements are fully available, and everything in between also. So what if suffering is here? What if I'm going through a difficult, heavy feeling or emotion? Feels like a black cloud on my head, can see, and yet it is impossible to avoid it. What to do? Well, what we do in that moment will exactly come from our genes and up-to-date conditioning. And all we can do is just let it pass. Or do whatever comes impulsively. Maybe we try to distract ourselves, or maybe we sit in meditation with it. Maybe we try to embrace it. Maybe we investigate it. Maybe we try to heal it with body work, energetic work. Maybe I listen to satsangs, hoping to find an answer to what to do with this. And maybe, just maybe, what may happen is there might be a giving up, not as a defeat, but as a willingness to, you know what? That's what the weather looks like right now. Let's not be the weather control board, and let's just let it rain. And all I can do is just maybe look for an umbrella to protect myself as much as possible from this rain, which is sure, why not? Or maybe we drench in the rain. It's like, what to do? It is cloudy. It is going to rain. The thunderstorm is here. There's no need to face it. There's no need to run away from it. There's no need to embrace it. There's no need to fix it. There's actually, it doesn't need anything from me. It's just here. It came out of nowhere. So obviously it'll disappear in nowhere. So what if for a change, I just sit back and just endure the unpleasantness of this? I don't even need to accept it. But in the very sitting back without any intention is the very absence of non-acceptance of it. Sitting back, not waiting for it to pass, but just sitting back. Well, look, it's a cloudy day. It may last a day, it may last a week, it may last a month, or it may last a lifetime. And yes, that's not ideal. It is heavy. It is not pleasant. It is very taxing to the system. But it's just like an illness. You treat it, you do everything you can to treat it, and then sometimes there's just pain management. If it's a chronic illness, all we can do is just manage the chronic pain or chronic treatment until who knows, one day you wake up and the pain's gone. Or one day we wake up and we find a video where they say, oh, chronic illness can be fixed, and then we go down that path and it gets fixed or not. So we just learn to live with it without blaming ourselves for not being able to handle it or for catching it in the first place. Then why didn't I eat healthy or exercise? And now I've got this illness. But now that the illness is here, what's the point of feeling guilty of the past? So in this moment, suffering is here. All that can be done without inducing more suffering on top of it is just to prepare for a rainy day. That's all. The day can still go on. I can still go to work. I can still maybe make plans with friends or not make plans with friends because I don't feel like it. I just feel like sitting in my couch and lying down all day, which is fine. And I can still say yes to some family invitations. I may or may not have the energy on the day, so I may or may not go. And all of that can go on. And all of that changes in each time. We may feel like the cloud doesn't go, and yet one Sunday lunch with family can be very different from another Sunday lunch with the family, even if we feel like the cloud is the same in intensity. And the family is exactly the same for me that it used to be in the past Sunday lunch. But still, the last Sunday lunch and this Sunday lunch cannot be the same. Something has to be different. Whether it's a little less painful or a little more pleasant or a little more painful. It could be on the either side of the spectrum of good and bad or pleasant and unpleasant, and yet it'll still be different. Different doesn't mean good different. It could be bad different. But just because it is different means that life goes on even with the cloud of suffering on my head. Obviously, it doesn't feel good. I feel like I'm dragging myself through life. But still, the last Sunday lunch with family can be very different from another Sunday lunch with the family, even if we feel like the cloud is the same in intensity. And the family is exactly the same for me that it used to be in the past Sunday lunch. But that is exactly what is in this moment. Is it possible to find in myself a place where there can be a non-insistence of what is to be there? What if the cloud of suffering is actually built on and made of my very insistence that this shouldn't be there? Or when will it go? Why can't I fix it? What's the point of me seeking for 20 years when this cloud is only getting bigger? And all of that is what the very cloud of suffering is made of. The good news, there is a good news. The good news is it's just a cloud. It may rain or it may be a cloudy day. It's just a cloud. Maybe a very rigid one. And there is a possibility in this moment, in every moment, to recognize that which is not only untouched, but fully open and available to the cloud of suffering and the absence of it, to that which doesn't love or hate, because love in itself is present as the absence of hate. For love to be there, there has to be hate. But if there is no hatred, what is left is this unconditional openness and availability to what is, whatever the quality of experience may be, however it may feel. And in every moment, that deepening, grounding recognition is available. That is where, that is within which suffering and peace exist. Let's open the space for any conversations. Feel free to raise your electronic hand on Zoom and I can unmute you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for another Sunday gathering. I love you all. See you next Sunday.